Let's talk about money, and from the perspective of making money as an entrepreneur who has a podcast. We're not going to talk about this from the influencer playbook angle, but from the perspective of a creative entrepreneur who is using podcasting as a tool and not as a job. If you've ever wondered how your podcast fits into your business or how to make it support your revenue without burning out, this episode is for you. Welcome back to another episode of Creative Made. I'm Yesenia, video podcast and content creation coach. And in this space, we talk about podcasting in a way that is authentic, strategic, and sustainable for you. Today, we're shifting gears just a bit and talking about something I know that a lot of podcasters are trying to figure out, whether they're starting out, whether they're right in the middle, in the messy middle, or they already have a few years of podcasting. And that is, how do I actually make money as an entrepreneur who podcasts without trying to go viral or selling ads that you don't really believe in? Well, this is for you. Let's be real. The podcasting world is full of conflicting advice. Some might say that you need 10,000 downloads. Some say build a funnel. Others will say push for sponsorships. And what I've seen is that your podcast doesn't need to make money on its own. And even to get to that point, you do need to go through several other steps prior to reach that bigger goal of having your podcast making money on its own. And is it really making it on its own? Seriously. So here's the thing. If you're an entrepreneur who is podcasting and using podcasting as a tool to build and amplify your business, your message, your impact, your podcast just needs to be connected to how you already do business. That might look like selling a service like a coaching or audits, launching a digital product, have a community, promoting a workshop, building long-term trust so people hire you later on or even hire you to speak at an event. In my case, all of my podcasts in English and in Spanish have been part of my business strategy and not the whole thing of the business. It's really how people have discovered me, how I gained their trust, and then it's how they take the next step, whether that is to book an audit, to join a workshop, or through hire me for a content marketing strategy. So here's where your podcast may fit in your revenue stream. If you're already running a business, whether it's coaching, creative services, wellness, or education, your podcast should speak to your ideal client, address their challenges, and gently lead them towards your offers, which is all part of a marketing funnel. So you need to ask yourself, does your podcast point back to all of the things or any of the things that you sell? And is it speaking to the person who is most likely to invest in your work? If the answer is no, then it might be time for a little realignment, and not necessarily a rebrand, not even like shutting down your podcast. It's just some time to really think about your podcast why, who your ideal client is, how are you serving your audience, and what content you're creating. And if all of that is in alignment, if all of that is connected, and if something is kind of off, then it's a time to pause and make sure that all of those things are in fact connected and supporting each other. And if you feel that something is off or that you're about to pivot, then definitely take that pause to make sure that all of your effort and all of the time that you're investing creating this content works well and works for those business goals that you are setting for yourself. Let me give you a few real sustainable ways that entrepreneurs, some of which I work with, are using their podcasts to make money. One is hosting one-on-one strategy sessions or creative coaching, like for example, I do with my podcast audits. Creating a mini course or seasonal digital product, maybe offering podcast-related services like editing or consulting or launching support. They're also using the content of their podcast to warm up leads for higher touch programs. None of these require a huge audience. They just require clarity in your message and consistency in your invitations. So make sure you are always adding a call to action. Now let's talk about monetizing, but without feeling overwhelmed, because there are lots of ways that you can monetize the content of your podcast. One, which is like the default that a lot of people know, is hoping for the best and that you have lots and lots of downloads so that you can start getting ads and getting brand sponsorships. That is one way that you can monetize your content, but that is not the only way. So you do not need to turn your podcast into a full-time job if you don't want to, or if you can't at the moment. You just need to let it do its job, which is to support visibility, connection, and trust. And when you're intentional about your energy, when you know where your podcast fits, you stop chasing every single trend and start building something that is sustainable for you. So that means that you may only be doing one launch a year, or maybe you have smaller type of products, digital products, so that you're working that passive income streams. Maybe you have a handful of VIP type services where it's high touch services with lots of done for you or done with you, or a combination of that type of services. There are many ways in which you can monetize your content as long as it works for you, and you can do so sustainably, not to just simply promote it, but to really make sure that every single iteration of that, let's say, course or program or content that's coming out has 100% your best energy or ideas put into it. If you're not sure how your podcast is or isn't supporting your income goals, I'd love to take a look with you. I'm offering one-on-one podcast strategy sessions and podcast audits. And these are sessions that are focused to help you clarify your message, realign your podcast with your business, and simplify your visibility strategy. This is especially helpful if you've been podcasting for a while and want to make smarter decisions without starting from scratch. You can book your audit using the link in the description of this episode. Thanks for being here, and remember that you do not need to monetize like everybody else. You just have to make sure your podcast supports the life and business you are building. So keep on creating.